repeatedly about the same person speaks less about that person and more about you, you'd probably want to understand it right now. Because there are three common interpretations that almost always miss the point. Believing the dream is literal, believing it's a premonition, or believing it's just a meaningless emotional release. None of those three interpretations do justice to what's actually happening. The correct understanding, from the perspective of depth psychology, is far more powerful. Your psyche is trying to restore a spiritual balance and is pointing you directly toward the area of your consciousness that needs to grow. Stay with me, because you're about to discover a simple framework to decode your dream and a practical method to transform that repetition into genuine inner clarity. Let's begin with an essential principle. A dream is a living system of self-regulation. When something in your waking life goes to an extreme, a fixed idea, an unacknowledged emotion, a postponed decision, your dreams compensate. They don't show what's obvious, they show what's missing. That's why when the same figure appears again and again, it's not about one particular person, but about a field of meaning, an emotional complex, an archetype pressing to enter your awareness. On a spiritual level, this movement is not chaotic, it's teleological, meaning it's directed toward a deeper goal, your inner wholeness. Think of it as a call from your deepest center, trying to reorient your psychic life and guide you closer to the person you are meant to become. Before you start interpreting symbols, locate the core emotion of the dream. Identify it without embellishment. Anxiety, tenderness, desire, anger, shame, relief, peace, emptiness. That emotion is the key to the right door. If yearning or sweetness dominates, your psyche may be trying to reconnect you with a part of yourself you've been seeking outside. If guilt or threat dominates, it might be showing you a boundary you're not setting, or a truth you've been avoiding. Emotion is the color code of the message. Without it, everything gets confused. Now let's look at a three-level framework for understanding why you keep dreaming of someone. Level 1. The personal symbol. The dream figure carries qualities that your psychological history has linked with a need: safety, recognition, challenge, freedom, containment, mystery, or power. This is the most concrete level. That presence represents a value, a trait, or a deficiency your conscious self has not yet integrated. Level 2. The emotional complex. When a strong emotion organizes itself around a recurring theme: rejection, abandonment, control, admiration, belonging, a complex is born. It thinks and feels on its own. You'll recognize an active complex if the dream pulls you emotionally even after waking, if you become obsessed during the day, or if automatic memories surface. Repetition is a hallmark of active complexes. Level 3. The archetype. At this level, the figure doesn't represent anyone in particular, but rather an impersonal pattern from the collective unconscious. The lover, the shadow, the guide, the child, the wise elder, the trickster, the great mother, the inner father, the inner opposite. When the dream's energy feels both luminous and frightening, you're in the presence of an archetype. This is the most spiritually charged level, and when it's activated, your external life often synchronizes with your inner world to highlight the message. Now let's move to the practical protocol. You don't need complicated tools. You need method and honesty. Step 1. Record immediately. Upon waking, write down 3 things: the dominant emotion, 2 powerful images, and the main action of the dream. Forget ornamental details. Go straight to the core. Step 2. Name the desire and the fear that are implied. Ask yourself, What does this figure promise me? What does it protect me from? What it promises points to a lack. What it protects reveals a perceived threat. Step 3. Identify the contrast with your waking life. Where in your daily reality do you deny, minimize, or postpone what the dream intensifies? The unconscious compensates, so find the exact place of compensation. Step 4. Separate literal from symbolic. If the figure is someone you know, remove their name and write the presence that X represents. If the figure is unknown, describe their qualities: distant, warm, demanding, free, mysterious. Step 5. Trace the complex. If the emotion feels disproportionate, if you remain hooked, if you replay the fantasy, recognize that a complex is active. Don't fight it. Observe it. A complex loses power when it is named precisely. Step 6. Detect the archetype. If there's a sacred feeling, if you sense that something greater is looking back at you through the dream, you're likely in contact with an archetypal image. Name it carefully: the bond, the guide, the shadow, and clear the fog. Step 7. Act in waking life. The dream asks for a gesture in the real world: setting a boundary, speaking a truth, beginning a morning process, dedicating time to a creative practice, maintaining a routine that honors the value symbolized. Without conscious action, repetition continues. Now let's explore the most common spiritual scenarios behind these repeated dreams. First, the projection of your unlived part. The psyche shows you externally what you're missing internally. It doesn't mean you should chase anyone. It means you should cultivate the quality the figure embodies. If the presence in the dream appears unattainable, your spiritual task is to move from idealization to incorporation. The right question isn't, why do I dream of this person? But what part of me is asking to be born through this image? The psychic energy wants to incarnate into habits, decisions, and your way of being. Second, the relational shadow. The recurring figure may hold traits you deny in yourself: possessiveness, coldness, manipulation, neediness, pride, victimhood, dominance, submission, rigidity. When these traits appear exaggerated, your psyche is asking you to acknowledge and work with them, not fight them blindly. Spiritually, denying the shadow is denying half of your map. Integrating it releases energy, and when that energy is released, the dream changes tone on its own. Not because of magic, but because you've listened. Third, the call to wholeness. Sometimes the figure doesn't compensate for anything specific. It calls forth the transcendent function, the dialogue between opposites that gives birth to a third path. If your days swing between extremes, control and abandonment, speed and paralysis, self-sacrifice and selfishness, the recurring dream might be offering you a living middle ground. You'll recognize this call because when you wake up, you're not trapped in one emotion, but held in a fertile awareness. Instead of blind longing or blind fear, there's a lucid, almost reverent question. That is the signature of genuine spiritual movement. Now, I invite you to a 7-night exercise to reorient the energy and test for yourself whether the meaning you sense is correct. Night 1. Intention. Before sleeping, write a precise phrase. Show me what quality of mine this figure represents and how I can embody it tomorrow. Don't ask if it's love or destiny. Ask for quality and action. Night 2. Containment. Avoid screens during the last hour before sleep. Breathe. Spend 10 minutes counting each exhale. This decompresses the entrance to the dream world and allows images to arrive without noise. Night 3. Symbolic dialogue. As you close your eyes, imagine placing the figure in front of you and ask three simple questions. What do you bring me? What do I give you that makes you return? What do you want me to do differently upon waking? Don't force anything. Just listen. Night 4. Minimal action. Whatever emerges, turn it into one small, concrete act during the day. If the message suggests freedom, make one sustainable gesture of freedom. If it suggests truth, speak an uncomfortable but necessary truth in a safe space. Night 5. Record variations. Observe whether the dream's setting changes, whether the figure moves closer or farther, whether the emotional tone softens or intensifies. The change in the dream is feedback. Night 6. Repair. If you sense the dream points to an omission, make a reparative act, even a symbolic one. Write a letter you'll never send. Organize a neglected space. Close an unfinished cycle. Night 7. Creative offering. Transform one image from the dream into drawing, music, movement, prayer, or writing. Giving outer form to something inner anchors the energy and opens a new cycle. Let's talk about the mistakes that consume years of clarity. Mistake 1. Seeking external confirmations. The one who speaks your inner language is you. No one outside can replace your honest work with your own symbols. You can seek guidance to help organize, but never to delegate. Mistake 2. Chasing the image instead of the meaning. When the mind fixates on who it is, it loses sight of what it is. The dream is never a message about others. It's a message about you. It's your psyche, dressed in symbols, calling you to awaken. Not to the past, not to the person, but to the part of your soul that's ready to be seen. What is a figure in terms of quality and function? It holds, demands, reveals, challenges, soothes, pushes, and confronts. Mistake number 3. Creating empty rituals. When there is no conscious act in waking life, the repetitive dream often insists, refusing to yield. Spiritually, a symbol does not ask for worship. It asks for incarnation. You might wonder how to tell whether what you're facing is a projection of lack, the activation of a complex, or the emergence of an archetype. The difference is subtle, but crucial. In projection, the idealized quality shines outside of you, and upon waking, you feel an impulse to move outward, to chase, to find, to merge. In a complex, what shines is not the ideal, but the compulsion. You feel trapped in repetitive thoughts, emotional extremes, and the inability to focus. But when an archetype is at play, what radiates is sacred ambivalence, a deep fascination mixed with respect, attraction mixed with distance. It feels like standing before something larger than your personal story. So, what can you do with each of these? When it's projection, internalize the quality. Choose a practice that embodies it. Let it live through you, instead of chasing it outside of you. When it's a complex, observe, regulate, and lower the intensity. Name the central theme without judgment. Take care of your body, because complexes feed on exhaustion and overstimulation. And when it's an archetype, listen and bring order. Don't make sudden moves. Create space and let the symbol work within you, because archetypal processes move at a sacred, organic pace. There is a particularly delicate dimension. Dreams that seem like warnings. Sometimes, during the day, meaningful coincidences begin to appear, linked to the figure in your dream. But not every coincidence is a sign, and not every sign is a warning. To discern, look for what I call the double meaning. The coincidence should make sense outwardly, and also mirror precisely what's happening inside you. If it only amazes you by its rarity, it may be chance. But if it aligns with your inner process and brings inner order, then it could be a sign of convergence between your inner and outer worlds. When that happens, proceed with humility, expanded awareness, small steps, and constant verification through reality. Now let's move to the fine engineering of the symbol, because here lies your evolution. Ask yourself, what energetic quality does this figure carry? Firmness, warmth, independence, mystery, discipline, playfulness? What virtue must you cultivate to rise to its level? What boundary must you establish so that this energy doesn't overwhelm you? Notice when, during the dream, the figure becomes most intense. That peak reveals your point of work. If the emotion rises when you move closer, it may be about intimacy. If it rises when you move away, it may speak of detachment. If it appears when you fall silent, perhaps it's about expression. If it happens when you give in, maybe it's about autonomy. This analysis isn't intellectual. It's a form of symbolic literacy meant to serve your real life. Try this practice for 3 weeks. Each morning, answer in your journal. Just 5 lines, without censorship. What most attracted or repelled me about the figure was, if I had that quality in me today, I would. If I respected my boundary today, I would say, if the dream were a one-word instruction, the smallest action to honor it would be, at night, review if you acted on it. Don't judge yourself harshly. Judge precisely. Precision is rewarded with clearer dreams. Sometimes, the persistence of a dream is rooted in the ego's fixation on a savior fantasy, believing that if that dream figure materializes in real life, you'll finally feel whole. It's a tempting shortcut, but ultimately barren. The fertile path is the opposite. When you move toward wholeness from within, when your projections are integrated, your shadow recognized, and the qualities embodied, the external world reconfigures itself organically. Sometimes, the figure disappears from your dreams because its purpose is fulfilled. Other times, it remains, but now calm and benevolent, because your connection to your inner center is stronger. There's a subtle clue most people overlook: the setting of the dream. Where the figure appears speaks as loudly as the figure itself. A threshold indicates transition. A house points to psychic intimacy. A vehicle signals direction in life. A classroom represents learning. A temple reveals sacred dimension. A street speaks of the social. A hospital, healing. The sea, unconscious depths. A mountain, aspiration and trial. When the setting changes, but the figure remains, your psyche is shifting focus from who to where your growth is needed. Record the setting as if it were a character of its own. Now let's talk about the body. True spirituality does not escape the body. It inhabits it. Observe how you wake after a recurring dream. Tension in the chest, throat, stomach, each speaks its own language. The chest, love, belonging, grief. The throat, expression, truth, limits. The stomach, emotional digestion, fear, control. Spend 3 minutes breathing deeply into the tense area and ask yourself, what unspoken word or unrealized action has condensed here? Then choose a physical action that embodies the symbol's quality. Walk while thinking with clarity. Train your strength if the figure demands firmness. Stretch if it asks for flexibility. Cook with attention if it calls for care. Dreams resolve as much through the journal as through the hands. When the persistent dream figure represents the opposite of your conscious identity, your complementary energy, the work becomes more refined. It's not about imitation. It's about opening a channel for that energy to dialogue with yours. If you define yourself by control, allow moments of play. If by giving, learn to ask. If by speed, cultivate stillness. If by safety, embrace exploration. This internal exchange activates what Jung called the transcendent function. Two opposing forces that by recognizing each other create a third path. The repetitive dream often fades when that third path appears. How long does it take for such a dream to change? There are no clocks in the soul, but there are signs of progress, less daytime compulsion, greater clarity about your true needs, and a quiet peace, free of euphoria. The figure may still appear, but no longer drags you. It walks beside you. That means the symbol has evolved, from tyrant to teacher, from teacher to ally. Keep a map of micro-spiritual acts for moments when you feel lost in the labyrinth. 1. Choose a small truth and express it with respect. 2. Set a simple boundary and hold it for 24 hours. 3. Dedicate 10 minutes to embodying the symbol's quality. If it's care, care for something living. If it's order, organize a drawer. If it's freedom, walk aimlessly. 4. Reduce sensory overload by 20% that day. Less noise, fewer screens, less consumption. 5. Write a single sentence summarizing your dream's lesson in the present tense. I am cultivating, I am releasing, I am learning. These micro-acts are keys. They don't force the door. They open it from the right side. It's vital to distinguish between chasing confirmations and creating evidence. Chasing confirmations means seeking external signs to validate your expectations. Creating evidence means acting according to the inner meaning and watching how reality responds. The first enslaves you to the symbol. The second restores your center. If your outer life begins to align, more honest relationships, clearer decisions, deeper calm, you're interpreting the dream correctly. But if you feel more dependent on signs and increasingly confused, it's time to restart the process from the beginning. Emotion, need, complex, archetype, action. Now let's end with a gesture of synthesis. Close your journal, release the complex interpretations, and simply ask, if this figure were to disappear from my dreams forever, what value would I still need to cultivate on my own? That single word you find is your immediate spiritual task. Write it down. Place it in your wallet or on your mirror. Each time you see it, take 1 minute to honor it through action. 1 minute may seem small, but repeated, it can change the trajectory of your entire life. Sometimes, a recurring dream holds an element of grief, not always for something you lost externally, but for something that never had the chance to be born within you. In such cases, the figure doesn't ask for union, it asks for farewell. The soul, too, longs to close windows that open onto landscapes that no longer exist. How do you recognize this kind of dream? The atmosphere no longer pushes, it softens. The figure walks away without threat. The dream grows brighter or quieter, and you awaken with a tender sadness. Do not try to hold on. That too is healing. Accompany the ending with a simple yet sacred ritual. Write a note of gratitude, release an object, mark the closure with a conscious act. Mature spirituality knows how to say goodbye. And there's another possibility, that the figure you keep seeing does not represent a relationship, but rather your vocation. Many people mistake what is actually a creative destiny for an emotional one. That recurring presence persists because it carries a mission, a work, a thread of service. How can you tell the difference? By the quality of the movement it leaves within you. If it pushes you toward a specific person, You are dealing with something relational.